It's a pleasure to have you joining us today. And I know that people are going to be really excited to hear your story. Um, this is this is Samantha Rutt, a paddler, sup paddler in the UK, and she has quite a resume. And she really achieved something substantial this July, on July 1st. She was the first woman to cross the North Channel of the Irish Sea, basically going from Northern Ireland to Scotland. And in the process, she set a world record. Has in her possession a beautiful certificate from the Guinness Book of World Records. There it is, saying that she holds the record for the fastest crossing of the North Channel. And I want to emphasize that, Sam, this isn't the fastest woman crossing. You were the first woman to cross it, but this is the fastest crossing.
Yeah.
So already there's guys preparing to try to knock you off your perch. So it's fantastic that you've got, men training and, dedicating hours upon hours of their training to try to catch up to a woman paddler. I think that's fantastic. We'll give you a chance to talk a little bit more about the crossing in detail, but I think the first question that comes to mind to me anyway, whenever I meet somebody who's accomplished something as substantial as what you have recently accomplished, is I like to know, like, how do they get started? Everyone has a story about how they got started paddling. And I'd be interested, I'm sure the audience would be interested in hearing what your story is. And then from there, how did you ever get the idea to cross these big gnarly bodies of water, rather than maybe just what most people do is decide that they're going to do some racing? So tell us a little bit about how you got started, your background in sport, how maybe that led to paddling, how one thing led to another, and then what made you decide to take on these incredible challenges?
Yeah, I mean, my background as a child, I want to say that I've always been around water sports, and my background's been growing up on the coast. But I was actually an army child, so we spent a lot of time moving about all around the country. And then when we did settle, it was in Bolton, which is my family town, which is not known as a coastal place. Our nearest beach is called Blackpool, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the water's awful. It's renowned for being brown.
Right. It's called Blackpool for a reason.
Yeah, it can be beautiful, but it's not really known as a mega location for like water sports. I then kind of got into sports and fitness quite early on. I've done martial arts for probably, it makes me feel so old now, about 25 years. Started out in kickboxing, and I started doing a lot of realistic self-defense, which led me into a career doing close protection. We moved to Milton Keynes, me and my husband and my daughter, and it's the most central place in the UK. And we used to travel to a coastal town called Woolacombe, and I saw surfers out there, and I thought that looks really cool. So I'm going to learn to surf, and started surfing and absolutely loved it. Would travel 4 hours every couple of weekends just to go and surf and get in the water and be on the water and be around the water. So that's probably my mid-20s. The martial arts was brilliant, but I think I do a lot of fun sports like snowboarding, horse riding, and then started doing mixed martial arts and injured my neck. So I blew one of the discs in my neck and lost some of the use of my right arm. So my tricep wasted away, my pec muscles wasted away, and I couldn't do a single press up because of the injury. But I had a holiday booked in Portugal for a surfing holiday, and I was devastated when I couldn't actually surf because I couldn't pop up, I couldn't do anything. And we saw these lessons for stand-up paddleboarding. So just wanting to get on the water, decided that we'd give that a go. And it was awful. So windy, our boards blew off down the beach. We had quite a grumpy Portuguese surfer that did not want to be teaching paddleboarding, and I gave it up for quite a while because I thought, I'm rubbish at this, it's too windy, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't turn, couldn't control the board, not knowing at the time it was the conditions. And as we tend to do, we always think, oh, it's us that are doing something wrong, or I'm no good at that. So yeah, didn't try it again until we moved to the Norfolk coast, and I had to go on the ocean on a calm day, and it was an absolute game changer. Fell in love, picked up a paddle, and have not really looked back since.
So I mean, that's amazing. An amazing story, because it's one of those from humble beginnings, right? Your first experience was, pretty more or less a nightmare,
Yeah,
largely attributable to the person who was introducing you to the sport. And,
yeah,
I mean, I think you're coaching now, and I'm sure that experience, stays in your mind when you're working with less experienced paddlers, right? A lot of what we do as coaches is we try to make the experience of the people that we're working with as rewarding as possible, so that they're going to want to do it again, right?
yeah,
But but I mean, I think, with an injury, and then, a negative experience, but then to come back and finally feel what it's like, to be out there on a beautiful day and to feel the paddle in the water, must have been a fantastic feeling. But I'm interested. You mentioned, your injury preventing you, or impacting the strength in your arm.
yeah.
Um, is that something that's gotten better over the time that since you've taken up stand-up paddling? Was that like a good part, or a good activity
Yeah.
for rehab?
Yeah, massively. Because I'm quite sporty and I'm quite active. When I first had the injury, I was told the only way that I would be able to get the full movement and feeling back, because I'd lost sensation in the two fingers, because the nerve that supplied them was being compressed, and the fluid in my disc had kind of damaged the nerve as it came out. So I tried all sorts. I tried tennis, couldn't get back doing like martial arts. That was really kind of soul destroying for me. I tried every sport, but getting back on and paddleboarding, it didn't matter as much, because I could still use other muscles to kind of help me move forward. And I think it really did help with the upper body strength, especially as you know, when you're learning, you're predominantly using your arms rather than all the muscles that we know we're supposed to use. So
Right.
I do think that might have helped a little bit, because it was gentle kind of rehabilitative exercises. And I would keep trying to do press ups, and yeah, they said the only way that I would get back that use was to have an operation where they removed the disc, put in a titanium one, and then fused above and below my where the disc was being taken out. And I saw 3 surgeons to find just someone to say, actually, we don't need to operate, there's an alternative, but it will be a slower process. And I decided to go with, I honestly tried everything from oxygen chambers, where you're kind of saturated in oxygen, to acupuncture, to Reiki, to cranial massage therapy. I never give up. I think that's probably one of the questions you'll ask me, is like, what, with the challenge.
Yeah.
I always think there's a solution to pretty much most problems if you can be creative and have a look. So yeah, just kept chipping away until
So,
it.
so over time,
Yeah,
it's gotten better. And I mean, I know that recently, this past summer, you took your strength and conditioning certification, right? So that
yeah,
you're in the gym, and I mean, you're throwing around, big weights.
yeah,
So you must have you gained like all that strength back? Are you 100% now?
yeah. I'd probably say stronger. I
Yeah,
think
amazing.
I couldn't do a back squat, purely, and a lot of it is guarding, because you're nervous that you're going to kind of damage it again. So that could be psychological, that you're thinking about, it's a bar with a heavy weight. But I'm doing high back squats and low back squats. I can do plyometric press ups now, which I couldn't do a single press up. And I think I was always really proud of being able to do tricep press ups,
Right,
because they're quite difficult, and um,
right,
losing that ability. But they're back. You can do it. You just have to
amazing.
be a bit patient sometimes.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, that's amazing. It's, I mean, for somebody who's really active, I can only imagine what it's like to, you know, more or less one day be able to do all the activities that you love to do,
Yeah,
and the next day not be able to do them.
yeah,
And then have people tell you that it's, you know, you either need surgery, and a very serious surgery, or it's going to be a long, long, slow process to recover. And I'm
yeah,
sure when they tell you that, they're qualifying it too by saying, you know, you may never regain 100%. And
yeah,
yet, not only have you done that, and you're stronger than you were before, but you know, you're a world record holder um, you know, in something that most people, you know, will never, myself included, will never think of, or even attempt doing. Like, I'm a guy, I love paddling, but I love paddling for, you know, a couple of hours, and then I like to get off the water and then look forward to loving paddling again the next day, you
yeah,
know. And people who do like these ultra long races, like the 11 City Tour, or people who do these big, gnarly open water, you know, crossings that are 5 hours or more. I mean, they really have my respect, because it's, and I guess, you know, I mean, your recovery demonstrated the patience that you have and the perseverance that you have. And that's really, I think, what you need for these kind of, you know, the kind of paddling you're doing. It's not something that you can just go out and do without training incredibly hard for. And I would imagine too that when you're doing your crossing, um, you know, things can happen, things can go wrong mid-channel, the winds can shift, the currents
yeah,
can be different than you anticipated, and it can be a real struggle to finish.
yeah,
So, you know, I mean, your background, your story about how you got into paddling sort of explains a little bit about why you've been able to accomplish what you've accomplished. But I'm just curious, you know, going from somebody who's, you know, finally got to enjoy stand-up paddling in a beautiful experience, and decided, you know, it was a game changer. You decided that you loved it and you would do it again. Um, where along the way did you get the idea that you want to be out in the ocean, in shipping lanes, in big gnarly bodies of water? My understanding is that the North Channel is a gnarly patch of water, right? Like, it has a reputation as being tricky with currents and waves and winds.
yeah.
What makes you want to do that? What, you know, why weren't you satisfied doing what most people do, which is, you know, using it for fitness? And then once you've done that for a while, hey, there's a race, I'll do a race, I'll do another race. What made you go to the you know, to these sort of ultimate challenges?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the journey, how I get there, is more important than the actual um day of the crossing. So I started really small. I had a lake to practice on, and I was on a surf style sup. It was a bamboo thing, so not geared up for sup racing. And I just wait to get from one side of the lake to the other in a fairly straight line, be able to turn around and get back. And then I thought, well, I wonder what else I can do. So I thought, I'll get back out on the sea, and I'll
Right,
paddle the next few groins down and back, all the
right,
time, learn it, or trying to learn as much as I possibly can. That was the wonderful thing with mixed martial arts. While it's quite a brutal looking sport, it's super technical, and it's like playing, I always liken it to playing chess, but with your body. And I love to learn. And
mhm,
as I was paddling, I was learning. You know, Scrabbling in 2016, there wasn't a huge amount on technique online. There were some bits that I could find. Your videos were so helpful. So I'd be doing that, trying to practice my technique, and then paddling a little bit further. So I'd go from one beach to the next beach, and then I'd wonder what it'd be like to go around to the next beach. And then it just
yeah, yeah,
kind of escalated from there. Where I'm based, it's one of Europe's biggest estuaries. It's called the Wash, and it's renowned for being a very unpredictable body of water, because it's very shallow, and then there's a massive crevice. And I think sailors have said they can sail a boat all the way from California, but actually crossing the Wash has been more unpredictable.
Really?
So I could see Lincolnshire from where I was, and I thought, I wonder if it's doable. And I know that there's a guy who took himself off literally with a carton of chocolate milkshake, and no support. He paddled across and paddled back, and he was the first person to do it. He was the first guy to do it, and I like to make myself accountable. So I told people that I was going to do it. Said I'm going to do that. Probably wasn't geared up for the distance. It's 24 kilometers, and I was probably only paddling about eight to 10 at that time.
Right.
A year later, waited for the right conditions and decided to give it a go, with my poor husband, who decided to tag along and didn't realize that it was going to be quite a fun journey.
So he was paddling as well?
Yeah, so it was just me and my
Yeah.
husband.
Okay. He was paddling. He wasn't in the
Yeah,
support boat.
yeah, it
Yeah.
nearly broke him.
And the marriage survived that.
Just about, yeah. We didn't
Yeah.
have support because it was very difficult to get support, but we had the Coast Guard and the RNLI on standby. My friend worked for the RNLI, so he knew that we were doing it. We had all our safety provisions, but my husband made the mistake of having a can of Monster. I don't know if you've ever had it. It's awful stuff, but it's full of caffeine. And he decided to have that before setting off and crashed halfway across.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So he decided after that he would be a bit more of a spectator rather than a participant.
Right.
And then that's when I thought, well, the English Channel's not much further. Wonder if I can do that.
And that's next on the list, right?
It is. I did want to do it a couple of years ago, but with COVID and getting permission from the French side, because as soon as we cross over halfway, we're in French waters, and they can be quite particular over the paperwork that they need for it.
Right.
So having that in place just meant that I couldn't do it a couple of years ago, which then led me on to deciding to do the North Channel because I'd raised money for charity.
Okay. Amazing. So I mean, if you think about it, like I knew that you'd done some crossings before, but I mean, you really hadn't done like a lot of crossings. You'd crossed the Wash,
Yeah.
and you were going to cross the English Channel, but when you couldn't do that because of COVID, you just set your sights on the North Channel. And away you went. I mean, I know that you prepared for over a year to do it. And I know that the training that you did, it was not easy.
Yeah.
You can tell us a little bit about that if you want, but I was somehow under the impression that you'd had a little bit more experience, tackling these big channels, and
Yeah.
really that you were when you started on July 1st across the North Channel, you're still pretty green in terms of crossing. Like you hadn't really.
Yeah.
You certainly hadn't crossed from one country to another before.
No.
That's amazing. That's amazing, and that you were that successful in your first go.
I paddled some difficult water around the top of Scotland, around to Wick, which has got some big tidal races and big eddies. And I paddleboarded and run on the days I couldn't paddleboarded from the Norfolk border around to the Suffolk border.
Okay.
But they're all inland. They're all quite in, like close to the shore. But this, I can't explain. There's something really lovely about being so far out at sea. It's just yeah.
So I guess it must have helped you preparing to cross a body of water like the North Channel to be paddling in sort of waters in Britain that are sort of infamous for their unpredictability and their messiness, currents, wind, that type of thing. I guess if your home waters are sort of a little bit on the gnarly side, it makes it easier to tackle famous open stretches of water, famous channels that are known for their capacity to throw a lot at you, right?
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the North Sea here, so it's renowned for being unpredictable, cold,
Mhm, mhm.
choppy, strong currents because of the way the North
Mhm.
Sea moves up. But the North Channel is very different because you've got two tidal systems interlaced, and the North Channel for Guinness is a very specific route from Donaghadee to Port Patrick. It's very narrow, but that's where the Atlantic and the Irish Sea actually meet.
Right.
See, that's why the swimmers do it, which it's one of the hardest ones for swimmers because you've got different tidal times on
Mhm.
two large bodies of water, one pushing up and one pushing down over the top, and the waves, like waves don't, their energy doesn't dissipate, so they kind of travel underneath and through each other. So the water was really unusual because you can't practice for that here. It's choppy,
Right.
but the
Right.
swell is quite regular. You get used to that swell movement, whereas the
Mhm.
North Channel, you get used to it and then you'd be hit from the other side.
Right. 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 And it's changing as you go across, right? Like it's
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
currents are. Um, Now I know too that you had a window in which you could do this crossing, because when you're looking at big open bodies of water, you're looking at your weather apps. You never know what one day is going to look like compared to the next and compared to the one after that. So
yeah,
you set yourself a window where you give yourself 4 or 5 days in which you can go, and you sort of pick the best day.
yeah.
Um, but I seem to recall when you were traveling from Scotland over to Ireland on the ferry, the weather looked rather ominous, right?
Yeah, it was 40 knot winds coming up
Oof.
from the south.
Yeah,
The ferry was I mean, I don't tend to get massively seasick, but it was
yeah.
rolling. The staff on the boat
Oh no.
said that it's highly
Yeah, yeah.
unusual.
Right.
We couldn't open the doors to get outside because the wind was blowing them shut, and
Yes.
my hair was just
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it was,
mean, whether you're racing or whether you're, I imagine doing a crossing, right? Like the day before,
yeah,
there's always nerves,
yeah,
and that just must have been. I mean, I'm sure a lot of racers can relate because I know what it's like to, and I'm sure they know what it's like to stand on shore the day before a race and look at gnarly conditions, and they go to bed wondering, oh my God, what's it going to look like tomorrow
yeah,
for racing? But so it's sort of the same thing, but it
yeah,
just sounds like it's on steroids because if the whole ferry's rocking and the winds are 40 knots, I mean, you can't paddle at 40-knot winds.
no,
Um, and so you must have just been going across and, please, please
yeah,
let conditions die down a bit, because again, you have a window, but it's not indefinite, right? You've
no,
booked
yeah.
like an escort boat and that type of thing, and
And
you can't have
the
them on.
logistics of paying for the ferry, taking the van
Right.
across Northern Ireland, making sure my two boys, my Labradors, they had somewhere to go because it was from one place to another. So there was
Right.
all that
Right.
level of anxiety. Yeah, I always get anxious. If I'm racing, I get anxious. I can get quite tearful. I know I'm not alone with that, because when I talk to other racers,
Right.
it's a common feature. And I think for
Right.
anybody doing any kind of challenge, it can be massively anxiety causing.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
I know I'm not alone in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, look, I mean, you've sent me some photos. So let's open them up and you can talk us through them. And then I'll ask you some questions about what's next, and a little bit about your coaching too, because I know that you coach athletes. And then I also want to ask you, what is it like to be a woman who is at the very top of the world, and including, all the guys are looking up at you and preparing. They're chasing you now, and in sport, that is a rare situation because, in a lot of sports, and most sports, I guess, there's male record holders and there's female record holders, but it's unusual that the record, the ultimate record, is held by a woman over males. And you've taken girl power to to the highest level here, because all the guys are chasing you right now, which I think is amazing. And I think it's amazing in our sport because I know that most races you go to, there's more men competing than women. Um, and there's certainly room for growth in the sport in general, but I think there's a lot of room for growth in the sport with women getting involved. And just in my part of the world, since COVID, I've seen more and more women get involved, and I think it's really great to see. But I mean, I don't know. One of the things I would hope from this interview is that more women will be aware of what you've done, and what motivated you to do it, the preparation you had to do it, but it'll get them thinking about, hey, they can do some pretty cool stuff on a paddleboard too.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I'd just like your thoughts on that. But let's look at your pictures first. And so what am I going to do here? I'm going to share the screen, and I made a little PowerPoint of the photos you sent me. So just going to pull that up into the center of the screen here. You can see that, can you, Sam?
I can, yeah.
Okay, so let me just put it on to presentation mode. And so there's your certificate. The fastest crossing of the North Channel on a stand-up paddleboard in 5 hours and 2 minutes and 35 seconds by Samantha Rutt of the UK, who traveled from
Donegal.
Donaghadee County
Donegal.
down Northern Ireland to Port Patrick, Dumfries, and Galloway, Scotland on July 1st, 2022. Officially amazing. So that's got to be really amazing. And I know they weren't standing on the shore in Scotland with this ready to give it to you, right? Like they had to verify it, and you received it after the fact. But that must be a wonderful thing to have. And I assume that it's going to end up in a frame.
Yes, yeah. Guinness provide a frame, so I'm just waiting for that to come. They only provide it to people that have actually got records, but I am going to bore my grandchildren to death with this.
Right.
It's going to be coming out every Sunday.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, I tell you what, like, we've all had, well, most of us have been lucky enough to have grandmothers, and we always think that they're pretty wonderful, but I can only imagine what it would be like to hear stories from your grandmother about doing something like this, because it's above and beyond what most do. So let's just see what comes up next here. So this, I took the liberty of downloading this, and I'm not sure whether this is the crossing exact route that you did or not.
Yeah, pretty much.
It just pretty much it just gives
the line is
people.
Sorry.
So I just wanted to give people some idea of, I mean, without the picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So I wanted to give people some idea of exactly kind of what you were crossing. And so just, this is Belfast down here, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we all know of Belfast, right? It's a huge port, big shipping location, big shipbuilding place. I imagine when they built the Titanic, it came out here and it probably sailed across your route and out this way down to Southampton rather than going up and around Scotland.
Yeah, I never thought about that, actually.
Yeah. Famous body of water. Really, really famous body of water. So, and sorry, I was speaking over you, which is bad form for an interviewer. You were telling me about the line here. Is this the exact line that you?
Can you see the little island where the line is? It's just the other side of that.
Right on here, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just the other side, but that's the North Channel as Guinness define it.
Wow, amazing. Okay, and so just so people can sort of, I mean, this gives you people an idea of kind of what you did, but just so you can sort of see it on a larger scale map. So here's a map of the British Isles, and you were going across this stretch right here.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So I mean, it's a substantial. Yeah, it's a substantial amount of water that you're paddling across, and I think one can imagine when you look at it how much current could be passing through that water, right? Because it sort of narrows there, and you've got the Irish Sea down here, and you've got the Atlantic, North Atlantic here. So there's, you know, water from two bodies of water meeting. There's going to be tides that are ripping through there. There's we always, you know, my part of the world, we when we think of Ireland and Scotland and Britain, we always think of wind, you know, because you're always sort of, you're never too far from the sea, right? So um, so it's always windy, and yeah, like it's just, I mean, it's a substantial thing. Now, just jumping ahead a little bit, when you do the English Channel, are you going to go from like Dover to Calais, or
Yeah,
what's your?
it will be Dover to Calais. There's another route that you can go, which is to Boulogne, but
Oh,
it's a little bit
Boulogne, Boulogne.
further.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
I would like to kind of go from Dover to Calais, because that's the main route, and there's a couple of charter companies that will take you that route.
Right. Okay. Right. Right. I mean, everyone, when people think of crossing the channel, they Dover to Calais is what, I mean, I think no matter where you live in the world, you've heard of Dover to Calais.
Yeah,
Um,
very, very,
I
very
know.
busy lane.
Yeah. 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 So, so that's, I mean, that's what you've accomplished. And over here, you can't quite see it off to the side of the screen, the side of the picture, but that's next step, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a bit. But um, so this looks like the port that you're leaving from.
Yeah, that was the harbour, and it was early in the morning, and it was a 5 a.m. start. So we was up at 4 a.m. and this side was just, I couldn't have asked for better conditions to set off on. It was so
Mhm.
flat. I mean, that,
Yeah, I mean, that looks beautiful. There's not a breath of
yeah,
wind.
nothing.
Yeah, is this,
Uh,
this port looks familiar? Is this where Ian and Adam from Ireland, is this where they do their training?
they do go to Donegal, but they're a little bit further round at
Okay.
Bangor. It's
Okay.
very, very
Okay.
similar looking, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
get, you know, the concrete walls and the you know, the sky and everything looks very familiar to the videos I've seen of them paddling. Just wondered if it was the same location. So this is you setting out, and I assume that your escort boat is behind you here, getting ready to follow you out.
they were out already. So
Okay.
for Guinness, they have to film you coming out of the harbour
Okay.
and doing past them.
Okay.
So they have to officially start the stopwatch as you go through. Once you go past that wall, that's where they start it from.
Once you go past the lighthouse, basically, or by the
Yeah,
tip of the
yeah.
breakwall here. Amazing. Okay, so let's look at what comes next here. Oh, this is we got you at the finish now.
Yeah.
So this
Oh,
is now this is in
yeah.
Scotland. Let me ask you, did you need to bring a passport with you?
No, no.
No,
Yeah. I
European
do
Union,
think,
right?
pardon?
Well, it can't be European Union now because Britain's Brexited. So I'm just
Yeah,
wondering about, you know, like, did you need a passport? You're going to a different
no,
country.
it's quite complicated at the moment, but I don't need a passport for Northern Ireland, but I will do when
Okay,
I'm going to France.
go to France, right,
Yeah.
right. So you look, obviously, you look elated here because you've not only survived, but you've done it in record time, and you smashed the record. Like, let's stress this, right? Like, what was the old record?
Ian, who is absolutely amazing, he did it in 6 hours 40 minutes, and
Okay.
I thought I'd probably be close to that. Didn't know what the condition, and he kept saying, "No, you'll do well, you'll do well," and yeah, so came in an hour and 40, hour and 30 minutes below that. And I was so shocked because I didn't have my Garmin on for it, because you can't have any assistance
Okay.
from Guinness. So when they said 5 hours, I thought they got the time wrong. I thought they meant 6 hours 2 minutes.
Right. Right.
And I actually swore, because I was like, no.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I mean, you look elated, right? And but I recall seeing video that was probably taken maybe 5 minutes before this picture was taken while you were still paddling. I mean, I'm sure you know the video you sent me where I saw
Yeah.
on Instagram. It was it was just in the home stretch, and you looked fresh, like you looked really strong. And so I guess it's a, it says a couple of things. It says, one, that training works.
Have a good coach,
And,
you see.
and you probably got, you probably hit a good day with conditions too, right?
Yeah.
You probably got lucky with that. And um, so Ian, you mentioned how wonderful he was. Like, he was really supportive of you in this, right?
Ah, absolutely one. Like that's one of the things that I love about the sub community is the support. And I hope to extend that support to anybody else that goes for this challenge as well. I think Ian summed it up when he said more people have walked on the moon than have crossed this body of water
That's right.
on a ship.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's kind of crazy to think about. But I was going to say
Amazing.
that I have a really good coach, you see, that helped with technique and got the training
Right.
right. So it makes all the
Right.
difference. But yeah, Ian, I mean, I think we'll remain good friends because it's that one thing with water is that shared experience that you
Right.
have with somebody else that's experienced it. Like Mark, the guy that's in the picture, he's a prone
Mhm.
paddleboarder. And
Right.
we've already talked about going off and doing a challenge together.
Okay.
It kind of bonds you in a way you can't explain, which is really lovely,
Right.
you know.
Right.
If
Right.
you
Yeah.
need
No,
anything, yeah,
I mean, I can relate to that a bit because over the years I've met like a lot of people that I've either paddled with or against, and like I like literally thousands, and
yeah,
I don't, I I can't even count like I don't need all the fingers on one hand to count the number of people that I didn't really enjoy meeting, like, or I don't
yeah,
really like. Like, there's so few people that in our sport or in our around the water that
yeah,
kind of leave you wondering about them or that rub you the wrong way. Most people are genuinely wonderful people
yeah,
and helpful and cooperative and supportive, and I just think it's fantastic that somebody who held the record was as supportive as he was, in helping you break his record, right? And I think it's equally wonderful that you've said that the same thing, that you're willing to provide your the benefit of your experience to the people that are trying to chase down your record. So amazing. um and now this is you. I assume this is after that you weren't driving the boat across the
that was more scary than the crossing when they said, "Do you want to
yeah.
drive the boat?" I was like, "Yes, please."
So did you go back to Ireland after?
Yeah, so
Okay.
you kind of paddle from Northern Ireland to Scotland, and then they bring you
Right.
back on the support boat, which
On the
was
boat.
so much fun on the way back.
So that must have been kind of neat to, like, be on a boat that's going considerably faster than you
Yeah,
would have paddled, and still it takes a long time to get
it did.
across. Like, that
Yeah,
must have really kind of helped you appreciate the enormity of what you just accomplished, right?
yeah, and again, Infinity that provided me with the support were so good and crucial with the timing. The conditions were very different on the way back. Um, Even on the way there, the wind had changed direction to what we'd all thought would happen, which is very common in the North Channel. It was
Mhm.
supposed to be a tailwind, turned into a headwind against the current, so it started to get quite choppy, then stopped. But then as we went back, it picked up it picked up again, and we were kind of bouncing over swell on the way back. And I think that's when I appreciated, because I kept saying that it was so flat the whole way that I was completely lucky with conditions. But then when we was
Right.
going back to see the swell from a different perspective,
Mhm.
the center of it was quite choppy. I think there was about an hour and a half where it was quite choppy, um, and then it kind of eased off again, and then it'd pick up, and then it'd ease off. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine just what it would have felt like to I mean, I can think of that, like, that anytime we've downwinded on my patch of water, you start in one location, you've got vehicles at the other end to pick you up, and
Yeah,
you downwind and you think, wow, that was a pretty long way, but you don't really appreciate how far it was until you get in the car and drive back, and the drive back is actually, it's not over like that.
no,
It might be half an hour of driving at 60 to 80K. And
yeah,
you think, geez, and I paddled
it's a long
that, and
way.
You know, like, yeah, it's actually really cool. But you, again, with you, it's just on an entirely different scale. So this is you and your team?
Yeah, so that's the crew. They were amazing. So they kept checking I was all right, because I tend to zone out and forget to drink.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens when I don't know if that's for everyone. So they, yeah, and cheering as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the moral support, I'm sure doing something like this is really crucial. And
Yeah.
then, you know, I mean, if I think, you know, like reminders of like I know when I do a long paddle, which is you know, rare occasions like races, Chatterjacks or something, I
Long.
try to drink every 10 minutes whether I need to or not. And but it's easy to forget about it. You get into sort of the rhythm of paddling, and time can go by quickly, and you, before you know it, you've missed a few drinks, right? So it's nice to have people that can remind you of these things, which really are very important.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think you become glycogen depleted in the brain, which is why you always get like fuzzy headed.
Mhm.
So you don't think as clearly as you do as you know you would in the start, and you kind of zone out because your body's using that glycogen for your endurance energy. So
Right,
I need a bit of a prompt every now and again to drink, because 10
right,
minutes, like you said, turns into 40 minutes, and then you're dehydrated and
right.
you're not going to be able to perform at your best. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once you're dehydrated, there's no coming back, right? And I mean, you've got to rest and rehydrate, but it's really hard to rehydrate while you're working. So here, this is you now. You can see land off in the distance, you know, over here to the left. But is this kind of like setting out, or is this closer to the finish?
That was closer to the finish. So that's kind of towards Scotland. So it looks like it's further away than it actually is. So he's probably about 4 kilometers from Scotland at that point, I think.
Must feel
So
pretty good to see land getting closer and closer. And
yeah, but that's the hard bit, because the perspective as you're getting closer, you think, yeah, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes. And then
yeah,
50 minutes later, you're still
yeah,
paddling.
doesn't actually look that much closer. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
How
no,
wide's your All Star?
23 inches.
Okay, so that's and it's what looks like it's a 2016, 2018 All-Star. So that
You know your boards.
yeah, yeah. So it just I mean, that's not a I mean, it's not like the tippiest board, but it's not like a like crazy stable board either. Like, I mean, did you have another board lined up in case the conditions were a little bit more gnarly than this?
Yeah, I had a 26-inch
Oh, okay.
All-Star on the boat just in case, but I love this board. I've done so
Mm,
much more training on the ocean on it, and um,
right.
I find it super stable for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that's great.
yeah,
Well, I mean, um, hey, it's better to pull three less inches across like a 5 hour body of water, right, than it is to
yeah.
pull you know, the extra 3 inches. So tremendous. So what do we got? Okay, so this is I think this is a video. This is a video. Let's just play the video.
I think that's at the start. Yeah, I think it's just loading.
Let's make sure the sound's on here. So sorry, this is before the start. You're loading up, getting ready to
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
and
So this was the boats getting ready, and it was Ian that actually filmed this. He was due to be
oh,
coming on
cool.
as boat
Yeah.
support. Oh, look at my face.
Yeah.
I look far happier when
There,
I go back.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Um, and
Amazing.
yeah, it was such a shame he couldn't come with us, but he just contracted COVID. Otherwise,
Right,
he did the right thing for
right.
everybody else. And I
Well,
would have loved to have had him there.
well, you know what you should do is you should invite him to be on the support boat for your English Channel crossing.
Love that. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
He's a great support.
yeah, because I mean, I just think I got to know him a bit working with him last winter, and great guy, super positive.
Yeah.
Does a lot of you know, big in the sup community in Ireland with you know, like getting others out in the water, coaching, and
Yeah. I mean,
in
he's
addition to
taken
it, right?
some amazing talent. He was in Poland with Molly, you know, he's an amazing coach, but he's
Right.
promoting the younger generations to come through, which
Yeah. Yeah.
we've
Exactly.
not had as much here. We've not had the support the athletes need, and yeah, don't get me started on that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I know you're doing you're doing your best to do something about that, but Ian
yeah,
is as well, and again, he's interested in being the best he can be in his own paddling as well. So,
yeah.
but I do think if he wasn't able to be part of this one yet, he was a big part of it. He just wasn't able to be part of the actual crossing. It'd be super cool to invite him to
That
be
would be
on your
amazing.
sport boat
Yeah.
during the channel crossing, the English channel crossing. I know I always think it's, you gain a lot of positive energy by surrounding yourself with, positive people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Ian,
so
if you're
that's really
watching,
cool.
yeah.
As long as he's got a valid passport, right? You'll
Yeah.
need a valid passport. So, so, um, so that's great. So look, we won't keep you forever because I know it's evening where you are, and you probably got dogs to walk and things to do. But like, let's just talk a little bit about what's next. So, you mentioned the English Channel. What's the timeline for that? I know you're also interested in racing,
Yeah.
and so so sort of tell us a little bit about your plans for the coming year, what you're doing now. Like, are you training now, or are you sort of kicking back and relaxing a bit after having done achieved such a great accomplishment? And I'd also like to know about your coaching,
Yeah.
and what you're doing with the athletes you're coaching and how they're doing. And so yeah, so like September, what is it today, the 23rd? What's
Well,
Samantha
yeah,
Rutt's
it's the
life?
same.
September 23rd. I have to say that I heard you've been like a media celebrity lately.
Yeah, BBC News.
Yeah, BBC, the
Yeah,
Beeb. Yeah,
I
like,
know.
yeah,
For someone that's so shy and doesn't like talking and gets
yeah,
nervous.
yeah,
This time last year,
right.
I was a whole lot more nervous, but I think I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with it now. But
Excellent,
yeah,
excellent.
well, I'm not backing off the training, as you know. I'm so
Right.
grateful for our weekly Zoom calls because I get so much out of them. Not like you said about me as a coach. What I learn from you is invaluable, and I probably bore all my clients, students to death. We're saying that I've learned this from Larry, I've learned that from Larry, or we're doing this because of this. So that's really invaluable to me as a coach. I don't want to stop learning. I'm also working with you on building on the base that we had for the North Channel. So I'm desperate to get back racing. I'd really like to do the Euro Tour races next year. So I've done a few of them in the open category and podiumed, but I think it's time to step up now into the like the big girls class and do the elite races.
Right.
And then hopefully the end of April, start of May will be the English Channel, which should lead in nicely to having a good base for next year's racing.
I like 100%. I mean, we've had this conversation,
Yeah.
many times, right? Like almost on a weekly basis. But
Every week.
like you can't go wrong with base,
No.
and you need like a strong base to be able to maintain the pace that you're trying to maintain for the distance that you're trying to maintain it in these crossings. And so and I'm convinced that the one of the main reasons that you were able to be so successful crossing the North Channel was because of the work you put in. You had done a year's worth of really high quality work on top of what you'd done years before that. And I can truly say, you left no stone unturned in your preparation. So that was fantastic, both like in terms of training and technique. And so taking that approach, I'm sure will help you with the English Channel. And then all of that base work that you've done, is going to provide you with just a tremendous, you'll have a tremendous engine for like distance racing in
Yeah.
Euro Tour races, where you can um, your aerobic level will be at a really high level, and we'll just need to make sure that we get you doing enough higher intensity work so that your higher level aerobic abilities are well developed, and your
Yeah.
sprinting abilities are well developed. But I mean, you've assured me that you traditionally have been a bit more of a
Yeah.
sprinty athlete than
Yeah.
a than an endurance athlete. So I think that bodes really well.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I would be quick off the start, or if we was doing sprints, I'd be up there, but then I'd just soon pitter off because I didn't have the I
Mm.
trained hard all the time. Even when you've got people telling you not to train hard all the time, I don't know if it's come from mixed martial arts, but it's that kind of train hard or go home.
No
And
pain,
the
no
more
gain.
I've learned, the more I've learned, it's just not true at all. It's the opposite.
Yeah,
The
and I think too, like,
80 yeah,
I mean, I think too, we need to be mindful as well. Like, I think every athlete needs to be mindful of recovery, but you can take like a 20-year-old and you can run their engine hard for, much longer, and give them less recovery time, and they'll handle that a lot better than certainly
more
somebody my
mature.
age. I do think that quality is important, and obviously quantity too, when you're looking at the work that you're trying to do,
Yeah,
but or the the races or the crossings that you're trying to do. But I do think that it's tough, because people get to where they they get to a high level because they have a good work ethic, and they're
yeah,
they're willing to embrace hard work and not shy away from it. And a lot of times what gets you into that top group is the willingness to do more than your peers. But
yeah,
you reach a point where you need to start thinking about being smarter than your peers as well, and being more concerned about your recovery. And and uh but uh yeah, you're a pleasure to work with for a coach, because
oh,
you don't shy away from the hard work, and but you also listen and ask questions, um and I'm flattered that you can draw upon things that we've discussed and then use that to help the
yeah,
athletes you're coaching. I do know that you know um, I was heavily influenced to become a coach by the coaches that I had, and not in a way where they looked at me and said, Larry, you should become a coach, but just because they had such a profound impact on
yeah,
my performance, and to a large degree, like, kind of my life, that I thought, wow, that's really cool that they could do so much for me as an athlete. I'd like to be able to do that for an athlete as well. And
yeah,
so, then you end up following the coaching path. So
yeah.
um, I can totally
I love,
relate to that.
yeah.
So you had some athletes competing this summer. You had some athletes competing in Poland at the ICF Worlds.
I did, yes, yeah. It's again, it's been a learning curve for me because I've always been in fitness. I was a personal trainer, so I understood fitness, but actually applying it to sup is very different to applying it to martial arts. So again, I've been fortunate to work with or done clinics with some amazing athletes who I've learned, like, you pick up little bits from here for your toolbox. But the more people I work with and the better they become, the more it makes me want to up my game, and the more the better I want to become. But that's the thing that I found with fitness, is it's not difficult to learn. I find it really easy to learn, and I'm enjoying learning it, rather than subjects that I've done previously where I'm kind of doing it because I have to do it, but the enthusiasm's not there. Whereas the messages then, and you must get this as well. So you're the first person that I wanted to tell that I'd done the North Channel, and to tell in one, what time I did it in, because you're such an integral part of somebody's journey. And when I get messages of people saying, even my 5K running's better, or I paddled further today, it's that reward is just
Yes.
priceless. Yeah, it's
Yeah. It,
nice.
it,
So
it makes everything worthwhile, doesn't it?
yeah, so
Yeah.
to have people go to the ICFs and compete and enjoy it and have a positive experience is special. That's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with you 100%. It really is it's a fantastic uh, it's a fantastic experience, and to see them, the satisfaction that they have, for what they've accomplished.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have, I mean, I tell athletes it's, only 3 athletes reach the podium.
Yeah.
So it's got to be about more than the result. It's got
Yeah.
to be about the process, and you got to be able to find like some intrinsic sense of accomplishment,
Yeah.
for everything you do, whether it's a workout or whether it's a race performance. And to see them embrace that, so
Yeah.
they're doing it for the right reasons, and then to see them go and do it on a big stage, and feel really good about themselves for doing it, is
Yeah.
such a fantastic feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
Well,
It is
look,
good.
last question, or last topic here, last subject. Um, uh, you're a world record holder. You're a woman. You're the first woman to cross the North Channel, and so far the only woman to cross the North Channel. But you have the world record. You are the fastest human being to cross that stretch of water.
Yeah.
And I know of at least one other guy who has attempted it since you crossed it, and you're still a world record holder. Um, and I'm sure there's going to be others to follow. Have you heard of any men that are,
Yeah. Um,
mounting an attempt?
Brendan, who he paddled all the way around the UK, has, I mean, today, huge congratulations to him. He's a phenomenal paddler. He's just finished, he's the first person to do the whole of the United Kingdom's coast, Scotland,
Wow.
Wales, and now Northern Ireland. He's hoping to get that done as part of his trip up to Northern Ireland if the conditions and everything align. So again, he so kindly messaged me to say, I'm looking to do this. I know you've not long since done yours. Do you mind?
Right.
And I just thought, again, what a lovely way to be. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping Brendan gets to have a go at it, because I think
Right.
records are there to be broken, and it might
Absolutely.
motivate me, to go back and do it quicker.
Well, I mean, I think it's like, you may not be eventually you will not be the current world record
Yeah.
holder, but you will always be a world record holder. You will have always held, for a moment in time, you will always have been the record holder, and that can never be taken away from you. Somebody can go faster, and of course, as you said, you can then go faster again, right? But at some point, when you are a grandmother, you'll be able to tell your grandkids that that you were the fastest in the world for a period of time, and I just think that's I mean, it's amazing. And again, as a woman, and you've got guys phoning you up and asking, do they mind if they attempt to break your record? Is there a timeline for that? Like, do you know when he's attempting to do that?
I know he's in Northern Ireland at the moment, so it could be. I think he's up there for another week, and I know he's doing a lot about educating people on water safety, and I know he's going to schools. So if he gets conditions, I think he's going to attempt it. So yeah, quite soon. But hopefully it opens up the possibilities for other people to think about different bodies of water that might be near them, that they can paddle. Every time I see the map, of the UK,
I mean, Sam, I've told you this before, that I think one of the greatest things about what you accomplished is the fact that it's going to motivate and inspire others, and being a woman in sport, women in sport are much more prominent than they were 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, I look at my own sport, my sprint canoe. When I competed in sprint canoe, it was men only. And the first time that women raced at the Olympics in my event was in Tokyo. And I mean, that's just far too long that they had to wait. And when they compete now, they do it at such a technically high level. They're so very good. They should have been doing it a long time ago. But in certain sports, women are still fighting for equity,
Yeah.
and even in sports where they're well established, there's not always the same level of participation in their events as there are in the men's events. And I just think that, I mean, you've accomplished a pretty incredible thing, and are the best at it, bar none, on the planet, at least for now, right?
Yeah.
And that's got to be, I think, really inspiring to uh, other girls and other women in our sport, or who may be just starting our sport. Um, to at least encourage them to kind of think out big, think outside the box, imagine, what they could do in this sport. And I think I also shared a story with you about how I took a group of women out on Lake Ontario when it was rough a few weeks ago for the first time,
Yeah.
and they'd not been out there in those kind of waters, and they were amazing. They were all up on their feet. They were, paddling hard to chase waves and ride waves without ever having done it before. And they all came in, huge smiles on their faces, but really excited, like this is a game changer. And I think we need more role models like yourself to help build the sport and the
Yeah.
women's side of the sport. And
And yeah, as I say, I think I'm grateful to the women that have already kind of, I think we've had some amazing, strong women early on in the sport that,
mhm,
Annabelle Anderson, Seychelles,
mm,
Seychelles a world record holder. Annabelle Anderson fought for equal pay. They're all
right.
people that at the development of our sport have kind of said, well, actually,
Mhm,
do you know what? Equal to, better than the guys. So,
mm,
I
right.
hope that keeps developing. So I think for SUP, at least we're lucky that we've had that so early on.
Yes,
Um,
I would agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
they
but it's something, it needs to continue. I mean,
keep
Annabelle, as
developing. Yeah,
great as the contributions that she made were, and as much as she really had to fight, like against situations that were unfair, and quite frankly, the number of guys that she just, kicked around
that's
on race courses, right? Like, she was amazing. But I mean, she hasn't competed in a few years now,
yeah,
and the women now who are racing now are fantastic,
yeah,
but we need more.
yeah,
We can never have enough of these, tremendous role models, and
yeah,
who are taking the sport in different directions as well. Not just the
definitely.
racing direction.
Yeah,
And I think that's what you've done a wonderful job of, and it must be gratifying to know that there might be women looking at that, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this interview with you, because I know that there's not a lot of women in Canada, unless they follow you on, Instagram or something like that, who know about what you've done,
yeah.
and they should know, because it's an enormous accomplishment, and it's going to guaranteed inspire other women. So
Yeah, if I can
um,
inspire one woman to do something that they probably wouldn't do otherwise, then that would be worth the nerves of talking to people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you're getting very good at talking to people. I know that I'm going to have to look up your link, for the links to all the BBC interviews, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, because it's tremendous, right? Like, and it's nice to see you getting the recognition you deserve. And you you know you need two things to be a role model. You need to be that person, you know like the person you are, with the character traits that you have, um, and you need to have accomplished something that gives you a degree of stature where people are going to notice you. But you need to be noticed. And if you do things in a vacuum, then, and no one pays attention to it, then you can't really, it seriously diminishes your ability to be that role model.
yeah.
And so it's nice to see you getting that recognition. And
Yeah,
um,
thank you for the
and
platform, Luke.
yeah,
Thank you. You are so supportive. It's unreal to women in sport, and I enjoy our Zoom chats, and
Yeah, so do I. So do I.
Yeah, you are so supportive. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate I appreciate that comment. Thank you. You know, this isn't the last interview we'll do, because we'll have to have a conversation after the English channel as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And
I'll have to get another one
we'll
to
have
put
to,
matching one to go with my other record.
yeah, yeah. Maybe what we can do just before we go is, I know there's going to be a lot of people that watch this that maybe don't follow you right now on any social media. You want to just tell us about your where they can follow you on social media, so they can keep abreast of your activities and follow you in your English Channel crossing. Wish you luck before you go, and celebrate with you after you've reached your goal.
Sorry, I got to check what it is.
Yeah.
It's Samantha Rutt _ Ocean Adventure.
Okay.
Sorry, I should know.
Maybe what you know what I'll do. You know what I'll do is when we post this, I'll have a little intro blurb, and I'll have your social media info there.
Yeah, Samantha Rutt
So,
_ Ocean Adventure. Sorry,
okay.
I'm really rubbish with
So
technology.
yeah, so people can follow you, and
Thank you. Yeah.
and they know what you're up to, and they can sort of follow your preparation, follow your coaching, follow your follow your dogs,
Yeah.
and if they're dog people, and but ultimately they can sort of track your progress, and be part of your English Channel crossing with you.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
All right, Samantha Rutt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for agreeing to share your story with us, and I hope everyone enjoys hearing about it as much as I have. And I'll look forward to doing this again in would you say, June? So what's that? About another 8 months, 9 months? Yeah. Okay. We'll see you again on this platform in 9 months.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
Samantha
Larry.
Rutt, thank you so much, and good luck with everything you're doing in the future.